welcome. Good morning. Thank you for joining our webinar today. We're going to be talking about understanding agitation in dementia. Let me introduce myself, and then I'll introduce Kelly. I'm Ben Allen. I'm a Programs and Education Specialist with Alzheimer's Orange County. I recognize some of the names that are on with us today on Zoom. Good to see you again. And looking forward to our time together. So those of you who have been on programs that I've presented before know that I was a family caregiver. My wife, Judy, as you see in this image, was diagnosed with Alzheimer's in 2009. She had a long, slow progression with her Alzheimer's disease. She had some great times and some difficult times. I dealt with agitation on a number of occasions, which does not make me an expert. When it comes to agitation, there are so many different factors that underlie agitation that we'll talk about, but I have learned a lot and have had the opportunity to be involved in a number of programs at Alzheimer's Orange County, and I'll share the benefit of some of my experience and some of our learnings. I want to give recognition, thanks to Leah Pegg. Leah is an intern with Alzheimer's OC, and it is her work, her research and preparation putting together this program that I'm presenting. So thank you, Leah. Thank you for being here. We are sponsored today by Otsuka, and Kelly Struther is representing Otsuka. So Kelly, tell us a bit about yourself and your company, and thank you so much for sponsoring.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. My name is Kelly Struther. I'm the Director of Government Affairs and Advocacy for Otsuka Pharmaceuticals. I live in Denver, but I cover the West and the Southwest states. So I've had the pleasure of working with Alzheimer's Orange County, and I'm excited to be here today. I'm also the daughter of a mother who had vascular dementia and suffered from agitation. And so I too am not an expert, but I definitely understand how this can be a challenging thing to navigate. A little bit about Otsuka America Pharmaceuticals. We are a US-based subsidiary of Otsuka Holdings, which is a global pharmaceutical company. We really work in the development of innovative products in neuroscience, nephrology, and immunology. We have really lately kind of upped our game and our commitment to supporting caregivers as well. We're really working on an industry-wide shift of how we think about how caregiving is valued and supported. We recently supported and funded a research study called America's Unseen Workforce, the State of Family Caregiving. And that report will be shared with the participants on the call today. But it really wanted to take a look and analyze the multitude of factors at the state level to assess how differing demographics, healthcare infrastructures, and economic conditions impact unpaid family caregivers. And then underscore the need to advocate for change at both the state and federal level. We also were the lead founding sponsor of Caregiving, the PBS documentary that recently came out with Bradley Cooper. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with that, but you'll also be shared the link, the YouTube link or the PBS link that will allow you to watch that 2-hour PBS documentary. And then finally, another thing that Otsuka has done is created the Agitation and Alzheimer's screener for caregivers. And I think that y'all will speak to that today, I believe, Ben. But we really wanted to create, it is not a diagnostic tool, it is a screening tool and really aims at helping caregivers speak with with the healthcare provider about some of the behaviors that they may be seeing in their loved one. So with that, I will again say thank you for having me today. I look forward to this conversation, and I will turn it back over to Ben.
All right. Thank you, Kelly. And thanks again for supporting this and other programs at Alzheimer's OC. So this is what we hope to accomplish today. We're going to define agitation and talk about how it presents in dementia. We'll talk about common triggers, factors that can often lead to agitation. We'll explore effective strategies to reduce or manage agitation. We'll look at some real life caregiving scenarios and how we might approach and manage those situations to improve the experience for everyone, not just the person with dementia, but also for the caregiver. So let's talk about what it is. Agitation is a state of restlessness, emotional distress, verbal and or physical outbursts, can be aggressive or non-aggressive. Common behaviors include pacing, yelling, hitting, refusal to cooperate, and repetitive questions, repetitive behaviors. It occurs in all types of dementia and varies based on the stage, the progression of the individual. And we'll talk about progression because everybody's experience is different. Different causes of dementia can have different symptoms. But even within any one dementia like Alzheimer's, and let me just clarify what I'm saying here to begin with, that because there's often a lot of confusion over the difference between Alzheimer's and dementia. So dementia is a general term that describes symptoms of cognitive impairment, whether it's memory or thinking, confusion, difficulty making decisions, difficulty regulating behavior, sensory perception, etc. Those are all symptoms. So the word dementia describes symptoms, and the question is what's causing those symptoms? And there can be many different causes of dementia symptoms, but Alzheimer's is the #1 cause of dementia. So another way of saying that is that by definition, if someone's diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease, by definition, they have dementia. As Kelly mentioned, her mother had vascular dementia, a different cause, different form, if you will, of dementia. So whatever the cause is, whatever the underlying physical condition is, whether it's Alzheimer's, vascular dementia, Lewy body dementia, frontotemporal dementia, et cetera, there are different symptoms, different rates of progression, and even within one type of dementia, there's a wide variety of presentation from one person to another, and the timeline of progression varies widely. Just within Alzheimer's disease, for example, the timeline of progression can be anywhere from 2 years to 20 years or more. So for Judy's Alzheimer's, from the time of diagnosis to her passing in 2022 from Alzheimer's was over 12 years. And that's not unusual, though it's a little longer than average. But again, there's wide variability. There's variability in the symptoms, variability in the expression of agitation. There's variability in the way people communicate. And we're going to talk about communication. And let me just say right up front that agitation is a form of communication. And the question is, am I paying attention? Am I listening, that is figuratively listening, observing, to try to discern what it is that the person I'm caring for is trying to tell me through their behavior, through the agitation that they're experiencing. So that's kind of a flavor of what we're going to talk about today. So why does agitation occur? Bear with me a second while I rearrange my screen here, and so I don't have the thumbnail images from Zoom blocking my screen. So why does it occur? I mean, literally, the cause, whether it's Alzheimer's or some other condition, is causing damage to the brain, physical damage that impairs the brain's ability to carry out normal everyday tasks that, for those of us who are still cognitively healthy, we don't need to think about. But as the disease, the condition progresses, the brain has increasing difficulty just managing day-to-day activities, including perception, sensory perception, and the ability to communicate. Another factor is environmental overstimulation, which can lead to confusion, can lead to just a feeling of being overwhelmed. Now, on the opposite end of that continuum of overstimulation is understimulation. And understimulation can lead to boredom, and boredom can cause people to become agitated. Let me pause for a minute, respond to the chat. Lydia asks, will the slides be shared or available to participants? Yes, we will share a PDF version of the slides. Thanks for asking, Lydia. And by the way, feel free to type in the chat if you have a question, if you need clarification along the way. We will have a time for Q&A toward the end, but don't hesitate to ask questions along the way. If you want to unmute and ask your question, turn on your camera and wave at me, get my attention, you're welcome to do that at any point. So overstimulation or understimulation. Pain, physical discomfort can cause agitation. You know, from my personal experience, whenever I talk about a subject like this, I can't help but flash back in my memory to my experience with Judy. And I just remember, you know, late in her life, there was a time when it appeared that she was having physical pain. She was on hospice at that point, and the hospice nurse called and asked if it was okay if we increased her pain medication. We didn't want her to be experiencing any pain. And clearly there was something that was bothering her, but because she had completely lost the ability to verbally communicate, we had to infer from behavior what it was that she needed. So she was agitated. She was uncomfortable. We couldn't figure out why. So I said, okay, sure, no problem. Increase the pain medication. Well, before we actually did, the caregiver who was caring for her at that point discovered that her diaper was pinching her leg. And that was the cause. So we always want to look for physical symptoms, physical causes of discomfort that may be the cause of agitation. And obviously, if we can alleviate those without using pain medication or other pharmacological approaches, we want to do that. Another factor, and we'll talk more about this, is loss of control, loss of independence, autonomy. And that's important for all of us to have control over our lives. And the reality of living with Alzheimer's or another cause of of dementia is we lose our ability to control our circumstances. So let's go on. Dr. Irvin Yalom is an American psychiatrist, and he says, as humans, we thrive off of independence and control. And that's important to recognize, especially later in the progression of Alzheimer's or any other type of dementia. When a person is experiencing the inability to perform daily activities, activities of daily living is the phrase, that is dressing, eating, bathing, walking, all of those are things that we take for granted. But the person who's struggling just to do those basic activities is losing control. And that sense of loss is often underlying agitation and is causing an increase in frustration. So we want to be aware of that. And we want to allow as much independence and as much control as the individual can manage without increasing frustration. We'll talk more about that as we go along. So we want to look for triggers. And some common triggers are changes in routine. Now, we all like to have routines because they help us anticipate what's going to happen and how things are going to unfold. And so we want to minimize changes in routine as much as we can. None of us like to be rushed or to feel pressured, but the reality is that living with dementia causes people to need more time. And as caregivers or care partners, as we like to say, that is, those of us who are family or friends caring for someone, we're their care partner, as contrasted with the professional caregivers who we might bring into the home, often do. We did when that became necessary. But care partners, we may not be as well versed, as well trained as the professionals, and we have a tendency to assume the person we're caring for is capable of doing things they've always done. But the reality is that that's usually not true. Other common triggers are just environmental. There's too much noise. There's a feeling of being crowded. There may be too much clutter, and we need to pay attention to the environment. We'll talk more about that in a little bit. Often there's misinterpretation of actions. This particularly comes into play with bathing and taking medications. And then fear, confusion, and as I mentioned, boredom, common triggers. And we learn to recognize what those triggers are. So how do we respond to agitation? And number one is that we respond with compassion. And so we want to ask ourselves, how would I want to be treated? And that's really the basis of compassion. You know, it's the basic golden rule. But often when we're overwhelmed with the tasks of being a caregiver, we don't stop to think about how our actions come across, what our actions and words are saying to the person with dementia. What is my tone of voice saying? If I'm feeling pressed for time and I'm saying, come on, we got to go, let's go, hurry up, get dressed, get ready. And that that feeling of literally agitation on our part is going to trigger agitation on the part of the person that we're caring for. So, how do I want to be treated? And the compassionate response always starts with taking into account environmental factors. What is it about the environment that might be triggering agitation? As I mentioned, clutter. Is it too noisy? Is it too dark? Is it too bright? Is there just too much going on around me? So, as a care partner, we consider the environment and then we adjust, find ways to be flexible, look for alternatives. Maybe the space that I'm planning some activity simply isn't going to work, and I need to go to plan B, or a different activity, because whatever it is about the environment is going to get in the way. So I have to be flexible. I can't be fixed in my plan, and I'm going to stick to that plan come hell or high water. That approach usually doesn't work. I need to be flexible. Then we need to facilitate a connection. And we do that in a number of ways. But number one is to make sure that we have eye contact with the person we're caring for. I don't want to walk into a room and come up behind and start talking. I want to make sure that I'm face to face. I have eye contact. There's recognition before I start talking. I want to be close enough, and I want to use gentle, appropriate touch to ensure there's a connection. And that's really a powerful thing, touch. Of course, again, it's appropriate. It shouldn't be threatening. We want to be at eye level or below. If we're above, if we're standing over the person when they're sitting, we may appear as a threat. We don't want to be perceived as a threat. So we need to get to their level. Smile makes a huge difference in how we are perceived. Then we want to practice good listening skills. And being a good listener is first and foremost, stop talking. Shut up. Don't keep talking. If I want to hear what the person I'm caring for has to say, recognizing that it's probably going to take them longer to express themselves, I just need to shut up. I can't be I'm not listening if I'm talking. That's the bottom line. Being a good listener requires patience. Most of us are not naturally good listeners. Most of us are not naturally patient. It takes practice. And the way we learn to be patient is that we are put in a position where we have to be patient, and then we practice, and we keep doing it, and we think, oh, I blew it again, and we say, okay, deep breath, let's try it again, smile, start over. Okay. And then finally, the compassionate approach always focuses on remaining skills. And by that, we mean we don't want to push the person we care for to do things that are difficult, that are likely to result in frustration. They deal with so much frustration to begin with, and pushing them to try harder simply doesn't work. And so along with patience is wisdom that recognizes when something is becoming more difficult than they are capable of handling on their own. For example, if we say, it's time to brush your teeth. Go brush your teeth. Number one, my tone of voice is directive, confrontational, might even be angry, frustrated. And I need to pay attention to my tone of voice. And instead of saying, no matter how politely I say it, go brush your teeth, a better approach is to say, let's go brush our teeth. Because the task of brushing teeth is surprisingly complex when we stop and think about it and break it down. And so we're going to need to support and demonstrate and provide cues a step at a time in the process. And so when Judy was still able to hold a toothbrush, if you can just pretend this pen is a toothbrush, if she could still hold the toothbrush, then she could, with help, brush her teeth. But she couldn't initiate that on her own. So I would literally, I'd say, let's go brush our teeth. We go to the vanity and stand there in front of the mirror side by side, and I would take toothpaste and I would put it on her toothbrush and I would put it in her hand. And I would take my toothbrush with toothpaste and I would say, okay, brush, and I start brushing. And that might be all it would take for her to say, oh, okay, and she would start brushing, but maybe not. At some point, she still couldn't initiate. And so I would gentle touch, guide the brush to her lips, and that would be all it would take. And she would start brushing. And I'd let her brush for a while. I'd brush my teeth. And then I'd say, okay, I would take her toothbrush. I would take a cup of water. We're going to rinse. Put that cup in her mouth, guide it to her lips, and she could take a sip. Swish. And so step by step, I would model and give cues that would allow her to perform that task to some degree with independence. So she had some control over a basic task, even though over time it was more and more difficult. I would let her do as much of it as she could. So that's focus on remaining skills. Just one example. So wherever you are in the progression with the person you care for, you want to be looking at tasks, thinking about breaking those down into simple steps and giving instructions one step at a time, modeling one step at a time. All right, so let's look at a scenario, a common scenario that we're calling the bathing battle. So Mary tries to bathe her husband, James, who has mid-stage Alzheimer's. James becomes agitated, yells, "Don't touch me," and pushes her hand away. Common scenario, bathing. I think just about everyone with dementia at some point will resist bathing. But there are some ways that we can approach this task to minimize the resistance. So why does it happen? Let's think about it. It's likely that James feels vulnerable. If you think about the process of bathing, and often the first step is, okay, let's take off your clothes. Whoa, that may be pretty uncomfortable, especially if it's in a physical environment that's not familiar. And it may be in the home that hasn't changed for decades, but as they perceive it, this is not home. It's not unusual for people with dementia to feel like they're not at home. Often we hear, I want to go home. And that can happen when they're living in a house where they've been for decades. They may not have a realistic from our perspective, sense of what is home, where is home. We don't know what their perception of home is. It may be their childhood home. They may be desiring to go back to a place of familiarity and security, even though the physical home hasn't changed in decades. Not unusual. And so just the process of bathing is uncomfortable. They may not recognize the need, the purpose for bathing. And this was true for Judy. She didn't think she needed to bathe on a regular basis. And nothing I tried would convince her that she needed to bathe regularly. Ultimately, I spoke with her doctor and asked her doctor to write a letter to give Judy guidance, and she did. I mean, the doctor was just terrific, very cooperative and supportive, and literally wrote on Kaiser stationery, put it in the mail, and it came in the mail, and I opened it and I read it to Judy, and it said, Judy Allen should bathe at least 3 times a week to avoid infection. I can still see the look on her face. She unexpressive. And she heard that and she just kind of shook her head. But it made a difference. It helped to overcome some resistance because she heard it from an authority figure whom she trusted. And that made a difference. So some resolution strategies. Again, the compassionate approach is use a calm voice, approach from the front, break steps down into smaller steps, demonstrate, allow, in this case, James, to assist wherever possible. Again, allow the person you care for to do what they can do. If they can use a washcloth and scrub, great. If they need some assistance, great. A shower chair is really valuable so that they can rest and relax. A handheld shower wand is really, really helpful. When it comes to washing intimate parts, you can say, and can you help with this down there? Or words to that effect. Let them do what's going to be most comfortable. Music can go a long way. One of our volunteer educators, Dr. Miriam Galindo, tells a story about caring for her father and classic resistance to bathing. And she developed a routine, and she talks about this when she leads a workshop, how she used music that her father liked. And when it was a day for bathing, she would start by playing the music in the bedroom. And that was a cue. She hadn't even said anything about having a shower, but the music became a cue. When that music played, that meant we're gonna shower today. And so she would have that music playing, and then she would transition to the dressing area and have a different piece of music. So the music cued the progression. Use of lavender, fragrant oils, Fragrance therapy is really valuable just to create a sense of pleasure. Again, it's a cue that's part of the whole sequence of getting ready for and taking a bath. Using towels, maybe even using a sheet, taking a sheet, not a fitted sheet, probably a twin size bed sheet, and just draping over the person so they have a sense of privacy. Yet you can take a washcloth underneath that sheet to make sure that there's effective cleaning going on. And so it's accommodating the anxiety that goes along with just being vulnerable in that setting. So again, some tips: speaking slowly, clearly, along with the loss of expressive language, there's a loss of receptive language ability. And so when we speak, it's going to take the person we care for longer to process what they've heard. And so we need to use short, simple sentences, allow time to process that. If you feel like they may not have grasped the message, you repeat, and everything's going to take longer than you think. So be prepared. Allow plenty of time. When you see frustration, you acknowledge that. You can say something like, "You seem upset. How can I help you? What do you need?" Maybe a simple question: do you need this or that? Avoid arguing, avoid correcting, avoid insisting. And if things are going off topic, or there's confusion, then just gently redirect back. Acknowledge whatever it is that's being expressed, whether it's in words or actions. Acknowledge, provide reassurance. Say, "Yeah, this is hard. I know. I can see you're upset. I'm going to be here. We're going to do this together. We're in this together, you and me. We're going to get through this. It's okay." Regular, repeated affirmation, support, acknowledging those emotions. All right, so let's look at another scenario, what we're calling the sundowning spiral. So the scenario is late in the afternoon. Anna notices her father pacing and saying, "I need to go home." He becomes agitated when he's told he is home. Again, person with dementia may not recognize that they are in their own home. Or it may be that for a variety of circumstances, as caregivers, as family, we needed to make a change in the residence. Lots of different ways of handling that. And one of the most difficult things when we've had to make a move is to hear, "I want to go home. I need to go home. When are we going home?" And yet we know that we made the move for good reasons. And we need to persevere, but we need to acknowledge that anxiety. Yeah, I know this is hard. But it doesn't help to repeatedly say, "This is home. This is where we are now." We just need to acknowledge the emotions. So we think about, why did this happen? So sundowning, which commonly occurs late in the afternoon or evening, and the causes of sundowning are not entirely clear. I mean, we associate it with the sun going down, and so that's why it's caused sundowning, but it can be for a number of factors, a number of reasons. It may be the declining light. It may be fatigue. It may be lack of exercise. It may be boredom. Lots of factors go into what we call sundowning. That's not necessarily directly about the sun going down. So some strategies that we might employ, again, providing comfort and reassurance. You're safe. You're okay. I'm here to help you. So tell me about your home. What was it like growing up? Because often what they're thinking of a home is their childhood home. So let them talk. Closing the curtains, changing the lighting, whether it's lowering the lighting a little bit, might be a need for more lighting. A snack may be important. It could be that they're getting low blood sugar, or maybe they're dehydrated. So snack and water is often a good strategy. And avoid correcting, avoid confronting, avoid reminding them that they have dementia. Pay attention to tone of voice. Pay attention to your body language, your facial expressions. Smile. When we smile, people respond to us automatically by smiling. Makes a huge difference. So reducing noise, reducing clutter, providing activities. Again, if boredom is an issue, boredom can lead to agitation. We want the person we care for to be engaged in life, engaged in the family, engaged in the home, to have a role. That role may be changing. Their ability to perform tasks is declining, but we can still give them something to do and let them know that we appreciate what they do. It may be simply folding towels or putting away the silverware. Now, whatever those tasks are, it's likely they're not going to be able to execute them to the standard that we would like. And I would say to you, perfectionism is the thief of joy. Insisting on things being perfect will simply get in the way. I was doing a workshop once, and a family came together. There was a dad and three adult daughters all came together to the workshop, and we were talking about this challenge of engaging their mother, in this case, in activities. And one of them spoke up and said, we came up with a saying: do you want to be right or happy? That is, if you insist on things being a certain way, it's going to continually lead to frustration. And we want to avoid frustration, and especially the escalation of frustration, as much as we can. Another approach to the environment, there may be confusion just within a home. And again, it may be the home they are familiar with, have been there for decades, but they lose their ability to navigate. And so putting up a sign that says, bathroom this way, can simplify and provide comfort. So just finding the bathroom can be frustrating if they're losing the ability to navigate around the home. Changes in caregivers. If you have caregivers coming and going during the day, that transition can be agitating, or the surroundings moving from place to place. So recognizing that transitions are a difficult time. So let's look at another common scenario, refusing to take medications. So Tom's daughter tries to give him his morning pills. He clenches his teeth and angrily says, "You're trying to poison me." So what's going on? It's often a case of paranoia, mistrust, or confusion about the medications. Not unusual if someone has prescribed medications to not remember why they need to take those. And we want to provide reassurance, again, without the attitude, the tone of voice that says, "Oh, come on, you remember Dr. Brown said you need to take this for your diabetes," whatever it is. But in a calm way, to say, "Dr. Brown prescribed this for your diabetes." That may be all it takes. When there's paranoia, and by the way, paranoia is common. Most people with dementia will experience paranoia at some point in the progression. And how we respond to paranoia is really key. We need to recognize it, accept it, try to understand what's underlying it, and not just dismiss it, not just say, "Oh, come on. No, that's not real. That's not true. No, I'm not trying to poison you." Their fear is real. What they feel is real. Whether the basis for it is or not doesn't matter. What they feel is real, and it's our job to observe, to learn from that agitation. As we've said, agitation is communicating needs, and we pay attention to that, and we do whatever we can to instill trust. And we do that through, number one, listening, paying attention, acknowledging, affirming, providing reassurance, being consistent in our support, not being dismissive of their feelings. So, some strategies. Offering medication along with favorite foods or drinks. Now, this goes along with common occurrence, and that's difficulty with swallowing. And Judy experienced this. She began to have difficulty swallowing pills. Pardon me for one sec. So we tried mixing medications with food. Finding the right food to mix medications in can be a challenge. It's a process of trial and error. Ultimately, and we tried ice cream, that didn't work. You'd think that would work, and in fact, often does. Ice cream can be a very effective strategy. But for Judy, it turned out to be pudding. For whatever reason, for her, the taste of medications mixed inputting was tolerable. And it depends on the individual and depends on the medication. Medications have different tastes. Some of them can be really unpleasant. So trial and error will help you find the right way to disguise the medication. It may require medications being crushed, and not all medications can be crushed. And so you want to talk to the doctor or pharmacist. In some cases, medications that can't be crushed can be obtained in liquid form. It may be that some medications are really not necessary. Later in the progression, for example, some medications that might be prescribed early in their progression to improve symptoms, to improve daily activity capacity, may not be beneficial after a few years. It's very common for medications like Aricept or Exelon or Namenda, which are commonly used in early stage or mid-stage dementia, but in late stage likely have no effect, no beneficial effect at all. So continuing those medications is just causing frustration, causing discomfort without any benefit. So it's important to talk to the doctor, talk to a pharmacist about those, and find out, do we really need this medication at this point? The same would be true for supplements. A lot of people are looking for some benefit from supplements, and there may be, but more than likely there isn't, or isn't a significant benefit. And just the taste of some vitamins, for example, is unpleasant. And if there's no real benefit, then there's probably greater benefit in discontinuing it. So in whatever we do to address agitation, we want to use a person-centered approach. What does that mean? Person-centered approach always focuses on who the person is, not the behavior. It's based on what we know about the person. What are their preferences? What are their pet peeves? What's their history? What did they do in their career? What did they do in their hobbies? The more we know about a person, what are their values? The more we can adjust our approach to them individually as a person. So for example, if there's agitation and I want to distract from whatever the cause of that agitation is, I might say, oh my gosh, look out the window, look at that sunset. Now, I knew that Judy loved sunsets. Most people love sunsets. Most people love flowers. Most people enjoy seeing the birds or the butterflies or babies or kittens. Cat videos are great. So anything that appeals to their desires, their preferences, is going to help you keep them engaged, help you direct them to something that will be pleasurable and allow them to find joy. Person-centered approach is always seeking to understand the meaning. What's behind this? What is it that's triggering this? Ask yourself, what are they trying to tell me? And practice empathy, not control. None of us like to be controlled. None of us like to be directed. And this is especially true for the person with dementia who is struggling. They may not realize why they're struggling. They may not know what's causing them frustration. All they feel is frustration, resentment over people controlling them. And so we want to let go of control. We want to gently lead and influence, gently demonstrate, provide cues, provide what's the word? Reassurance. Remind them of how important they are to you. Remind them how much you appreciate what they do. Let them know that you understand it's hard because their life, their experience every day is hard. And let me just say that I know your job is hard. Being a caregiver for someone with dementia is the hardest job I know of. And that is doubly true if you are still trying to care for your own children, still trying to work while you're caring for someone with dementia. That is just a difficult thing to do. And you need all the support and help you can get. So we need to be aware of dangers and recognize when things are escalating. Maybe there's shouting, there's anger, there could be physical aggression. And so we need to pay attention. We need to act for safety, both for the person you're caring for and for yourself. We need to remove those triggers. We need to be prepared to call for help. We may need to allow space. We need to have space for ourselves. We may need to involve professionals to consult with physician, psychologist, a case manager. There are lots of people who are in a position to help, and recognizing that we need help, that we can't do this on our own. We're going to need help no matter how capable, how committed we are to the task of caring for someone we love. It is tough, and no one can do it on their own. Now, this is a tool, the Agitation and Alzheimer's Screener for caregivers. And this is just a way of quantifying whether any of the indications of agitation are true. And you may want to use this as a way of documenting what you're experiencing so that when you go to a doctor's appointment, for example, for the person you're caring for, you have some specifics and recording with a date. Are there repetitive movements or behaviors? Are you experiencing pacing, restlessness, cursing, profanity, lashing out verbally, raising voice, yelling, screaming, resisting assistance care, throwing, hitting, breaking things, trying to hurt themselves or others? And are any of these causing daily activities to be more challenging? It's helpful to record because when you have that opportunity to talk to someone in your medical team, you want to have specifics and maybe look at it over time, whether it's a weekly basis, monthly basis, so that you have a record, you can quantify it. And the you can find this screener on the website, which I'll repeat later, the aasc.com/AASC-screener. And that's a great site. So As I've said, you have a tough job. It affects caregivers emotionally and physically. It is not unusual for the health of a caregiver to be directly affected as a result of the care that you provide. Its importance doesn't go far enough. Um, we like the phrase, you can't pour from an empty cup. You know, when we talk about caregivers taking care of themselves, taking time for self-care, for respite, time to get away, it's very easy for us to say that in a implying you need to do this. And I don't want to come across that way. I just know from experience. There were many times where I was so at the end of my rope, so empty that I didn't have anything left and I needed help. There was a day, Judy was still okay to be left alone for an hour or so, and I would go to the grocery store. And I drove to the grocery store and I sat in the parking lot and I was so stressed, exhausted, overwhelmed. I sat in my car and sobbed. And it was a reckoning. And I thought, I need help. And I made the commitment that I was going to start seeing a counselor. And I did. And it made a huge difference. To think that we can do this without help is to deny the reality of the impact on us. So we do need to ask for help. So at Alzheimer's Orange County, that's what we're here for, is to provide support, provide resources. We can help with family consultations, referrals, support groups, information about adult day programs, care consultants who can help you identify approaches to care, to get in-home caregivers, and many more ways that we can help. So we really hope that you will reach out to us, and I'll provide our helpline number and our website in just a minute. The reality is that just in the state of California, there are more caregivers, there are more hours of unpaid care provided in California than anywhere else in the country, according to a study by Columbia University. So a final scenario, cumulative stress. Scenario is a daughter caring for her mom with dementia experiences daily episodes of agitation. She feels exhausted, hopeless, and guilty for getting frustrated. So how might we approach that? Number one is to seek out a caregiver support group. There is so much benefit from meeting with other people who are walking the same road or who have walked it before us and have learned from their experience and can provide encouragement and suggestions and resources. To schedule regular respite, to arrange for others, whether it's family members, neighbors, maybe someone in your faith community, maybe it's professional caregivers coming in to allow you to have a time of respite. And that might be just for an hour or maybe half a day. To learn to set boundaries. And often this has to do with dealing with other family members who have different expectations, who have different perception of the reality of the situation, who may be in denial, who may not see things the way you do and don't understand why you're so upset. There are lots of community resources available, whether it's in home care, adult day programs, and other ways to help. So I'm going to wrap up. I've gone a little bit over time. Key takeaways. Number one, when we see agitation, we recognize it as communication. All behavior is communication. The question is, am I paying attention? Am I asking myself, why? What's behind this? Do I approach the situation with a calmness, which admittedly is hard? Am I consistent? Am I compassionate in my responses? That will always be the best approach. Recognize that as caregivers, we need support too. Dr. Yalom says one of the greatest sources of healing is the experience of being met with genuine empathy. We as caregivers need others to empathize with us in our experience, and the person who is living with dementia needs our empathy. They need to know that we hear them. So many people with dementia feel like nobody listens to them. Everybody's in a hurry and they won't stop and listen to me. People need to be heard and to know that they have been heard. That requires us to practice listening skills, to be quiet, to be patient, to acknowledge what we hear and see. So some resources, as I mentioned, the screening tool for agitation in Alzheimer's. Otsuka has resources on their website, and here's their web address. Some books you might look into, the 36-hour day, the classic book, that the reality is when we are caregiving, our day feels like it's 36 hours long. That's the key. Or also loving someone who has dementia. How do we learn to love? How to express love? Love is action. And then Teepa Snow, who is just one of the greatest experts on caring for people with dementia, what she calls the positive approach to care. You can check out on her website, teepasnow.com. You can also find her on YouTube. She has a number of really great videos on care. So let me pause here and see what questions you all have. Feel free to type in the chat or to unmute and share. If you have a question, feel free. Leah has posted the link to the screener. You can find that in the chat. Any questions, comments? Feel free to.
Hi, can you
Gabby,
hear
go
me?
ahead.
Yes, Gabby. Hi, I do have a question. I am a private caregiver and I work with this patient with dementia, and she has three other caregivers. One of the caregivers is very controlling. I have mentioned this to the family, and I try to approach her individually and, tell her, for instance, she said she has OCD, so she wants everything perfect. So we have find out that the patient is getting, she keeps saying, I'm so stupid because she cannot do the things how she likes. And she doesn't see how is that affecting the patient. How can I approach this situation?
Thanks for the question. Gabby, that's a tough situation. It's hard to provide guidance, especially to another professional, but the same is true with family members. I guess my first recommendation would be to encourage the other caregiver to get educated, to check out, for example, the videos from Teepa Snow that might open this person's eyes, to sign up for some of the other webinars that we provide. We have several webinars every month. And some of those we provide free credits for continuing education if that's a need. I would encourage individuals to reach out to our helpline. Leah has posted the helpline number, which I'll show again here in just a minute. Anybody can call our helpline, including professionals. So those would be some of my suggestions, Gabby. I can't guarantee that they will work, but it's worth a try. Other questions?
Thank you. Thank you.
Welcome. Anybody else? Again, feel free to unmute.
I do. I just wanted to comment that I've attended a lot of these different, webinars, and quite honestly have felt they aren't very good. They're sort of very basic stuff I didn't like. I know that. This was truly outstanding, and I'm sure you'll see in the comments in the chat. Hearing it from someone like yourself who's lived it is just so game changing for us to hear. And I actually even took notes. I mean, it just was some really, really good stuff that, is really helpful. So just wanted to say thank you.
Thank you, Carol. And Leah, take that as a compliment. Good job.
Right. Leah also, yes, exactly. Look at the comments, you'll see. I mean, people are raving.
I'm glad. Thank you, Carol. Appreciate it. All right. Here's the helpline number at Alzheimer's OC. Our team in the helpline are just terrific. They're all social workers. They've heard just about every question you could imagine. We help thousands of people. So please call the helpline with any question. You need help getting registered for another workshop. You need referrals to other resources, to medical professionals. If you are concerned about your own memory and you want to get a memory screening, we can schedule a memory screen for you, and you can find out whether your memory concerns are significant and require additional follow-up, or maybe just give you a baseline of how well your memory is functioning relative to your age at this stage. We have a great website with lots of information, including our calendar of other classes and webinars. So please check us out, alzoc.org. Again, I want to say thank you to Atsuka. Kelly, we appreciate the financial support and resources that you offer. And thank you all for being here. Thank you for what you do as caregivers. Again, we know that you have a hard job, and that's why we are here to support you. So that's it for today. If you had a question that didn't get answered, please call the helpline. Give us a chance to provide, to give you what you need to navigate through this difficult journey. It's been a pleasure being with you. Again, Leah, great job. Thank you for all you did to pull together this information. And I hope to see you all in another workshop.
I was gonna say thank you, Ben, for carrying this out in the most beautiful, authentic, powerful. I almost started crying at some point, so just thank you. You did such an amazing job.
Thanks, Leah.
Yes, thank
My
you, Ben. It
pleasure.
was great.
All right. Take care, everybody. Take care of yourself. And if you can, somebody else.